Okay, we can hear you. All right.
All
Well,
right,
Mark,
great.
welcome. You've got a very fascinating sort of story to tell, I believe, and so thank you for coming here and being willing to share that with us. Um, so, and you have a PhD in something. I don't know what it is, but
Okay, so let me
yeah, give
kind
us
of
give us a little background if you don't
yeah.
mind.
All right. So currently, I'm in my dissertation phase.
Okay,
So I'm about to start into the actual research. So I got about 6 months or so before I actually earn that
gotcha.
PhD.
Okay,
But I didn't want to have to change my Instagram and all that other stuff afterwards because I just set all that up. So just a little caveat there. I don't want to, take away from those like yourself who have earned that doctorate degree at this point. So um, the lady that was on before, what was her name that opened up
that
the?
was I believe it was Masa. Yeah, Masa,
Okay,
who's the co-founder of MeterX. She is our technical co-founder, and she's the one that
okay.
thankfully allows us to do all these things that we're doing, the
Yeah,
neat stuff.
she had mentioned that I had lost 217 pounds. Actually, it's 222 now, but who's
There you
counting?
go. Yeah, there you go. Who's
So,
counting? Good for you.
yeah,
That's
at that
that's
point,
that's
who's
all.
who's
Yeah,
counting?
you've that's almost what I weigh. I'm about 20 pounds heavier than that, or 25 pounds heavier than that. So you've almost lost me, which if I jumped on someone's back and made them carry me around, they would certainly notice it, I think.
I would think so. Yeah, 220 pounds is a pretty big weight loss. So, but it's been good. Let me tell you a little bit about my journey.
Sure.
I've
What is,
so
just before you do, Mark, what is the area of study, the field of study for
oh
your PhD, by
um,
the way?
in leadership and
Okay.
specifically in nonprofit organizational management
Gotcha. Okay.
is where I am.
All right.
So that's my I actually have four other degrees, but again, who's counting? Um, so I actually have three masters. One is in Master of Arts, then I have a Master's of Education in Religion, and then a Master's in Divinity as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm pretty tortured, I guess, when it comes to education, putting myself through all of
You
that.
you
So,
you like it.
yes, sir.
When I finished medical school and my surgical training, I'm like, I don't want to do any more formal education. I'll learn stuff I want to, but I mean, I think I'd had enough of that. You kind of get beat out of you after a while. So
Yeah,
anyway,
once I finish my PhD, I'll probably actually go back and get another one.
interesting.
So yeah,
Well,
it's
good for you.
torturous, I guess. So, anything else you want to know before I tell you a little bit about the journey?
No, that's fine. Go ahead and just dive in and let's hear about it, because it's pretty quite amazing.
Sure. So I've been pretty large, for the most of my adult life. When I was 16, 17 in high school, I graduated when I was 17 from high school. So back then, I was about 230 pounds, had a 32-inch waist. I was ranked number 4 in the state of Kentucky with drug-free powerlifting, 7th in my weight class nationally that year. So I had always been pretty, I've been watching my weight, food, lifting, been pretty healthy. And then the summer of my senior year, so I was 17, there was just like a switch that got turned off in my body and started gaining weight. And over the years, I saw a lot of doctors after I had gained 200 pounds. I'm like, okay, something's wrong. And every doctor that I went to said, oh, basically you're just a fat guy that needs bariatric treatment. And I would tell them, that's not it. There's obviously something wrong. One of the doctors that I saw, he was like, hey, let me put you on a diet plan. And I said, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. So he hands me this sheet with the diet plan on there. And he said, okay, so here's a 1,500 calorie diet. I want you to follow this for the next 2 weeks. So I start looking at this diet, and I'm just looking down through the things that he's wanting me to eat. 2 pieces of Melba toast, 2 egg whites, and a half an apple. And I'm calculating all this in my head. And I said, how much did you say this was? Oh, it's 1,500 calories. And I'm like, no. I said, I'm coming up with 800. So I started reading off all this stuff and the calorie count to him, and his eyes, they're about this big. And I said, so I come up with about 800. And he looks at me and he says, actually, it's 792. And I'm like, okay, why'd you lie to me? He's like, because most people won't do it. So Dr. Baker, I was on his diet for 2 weeks and I gained 15 pounds, eating 800 calories a day. And my wife and kids did not want to live with me at that point. I didn't want to live with myself. So that's one experience that I had with doctors that, all they do is just, they look at what they see. They don't ask any questions. They think they have just a regular routine system that you should follow. And things just kept getting worse. So in 2016, I found myself at my highest weight, 543 pounds. In my video, I make this statement, I weighed more than a Chevy S10 was legally allowed to carry. When that's just incredible.
You see that number? It was 500 and what? 545 pounds?
543 pounds.
Wow. You got to get a special scale. Most scales don't even go up to that.
Right. In fact, several years earlier, I had found an old transportation scale. I mean, it's like from the 1930s or something that had, the huge weights that you could put on the end of it. And so that's how I would have to weigh myself. And it went up to like 900 pounds or something like that. Or while I was working, because back then I worked for a transportation company, I would actually go in to when I delivered or picked up places and step on the freight scale, and listen to it say, "Dear God, get off of me," and watch those numbers just keep increasing and watching my weight go up and my waistline get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was terrible. And so in 2016, go ahead.
I'll just add in here, when I was practicing as an orthopedic surgeon, we would sometimes get these, extremely morbidly obese patients that were, 500 plus pounds, and we'd want to get if we needed to get an MRI on them, the hospital grade MRIs wouldn't work, and we would literally have to send these people to places like SeaWorld, where they would image large marine mammals. They had MRI machines. You literally have to send people to places like SeaWorld to get their MRIs done, wow. Which was, just kind of crazy to think about. But that's, they're becoming almost a different species with that amount of weight.
So you're saying that I was a whale of a man?
I'm not saying that, but you want to put that.
You could. It would be true. Yeah, I was huge. I mean, 72 pants, 9X shirt. Yeah, my shirt was like a bedspread for most people. It was huge. So yeah, I had a few MRIs, and they would send me to specialized places for open MRIs. Just couldn't fit in the tubes. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I never went to SeaWorld. That would have been a free pass. I probably should have went at some point. But so in 2016, I was at my highest.
And just because they're asking how tall you are, and I can't imagine at any height 500 pounds unless you're like 11 feet tall, which I'm sure you weren't. But how tall are
you? 5'10". 5'10". Yeah. I was a short little round pudge ball. Yeah, sure was. Well, a big pudge ball. But so in 2016, I was pastoring at the time. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? I've got to do something to get this under control. So I took a 2-week hiatus, and I went to a ministry close to where I live that allowed me to stay there for 2 weeks. And Dr. Baker, what I did, I did what I knew, and being a former power lifter and a weight trainer, and I've trained other people, for bodybuilding contests and things. I said, all right, so I've got to get my calories under control, and I've got to do something. Even at 543 pounds, that's just going to shock my body. So what I would do during that 2 weeks, I would get up, and the first thing that I would do is I would go walk. My first day, I was really ambitious, and I had a 5-mile track that I walked. It took me like almost 6 hours. I was dead. I was calling my wife on the phone for encouragement just to make it the last mile. It was terrible, and I was sore for like a week. But so I would go out walking, and then at 10 o'clock, I took a Metrics shake, which is, a company that produces a, supplement. And then I would do that 2 o'clock, and then I would have salmon and a salad at 6. So without knowing it, I was doing, about an 8-hour window. And I found out later it's called intermittent fasting. It was pretty good in that 2 weeks, but I actually dropped about 30 pounds in that 2 weeks. I think it was 32 pounds. But then when I came back home, all that weight loss stopped, and I was trying to do this exact same thing. So it worked for a short amount of time, and then frustration built back up. So from 2016 to 2019, in those 3 years, I did manage to lose 63 pounds, but that's, 21 pounds a year. I mean, that's nothing. So in 2019, my wife discovered Dr. Jason Fung. I'm sure you're familiar with him, and started listening to his ideology. And at first I said, honey, that guy's crazy. You can't survive like that. And that's counterintuitive to everything you hear from nutritionists, and that you hear from the doctors, and that you read in the magazines. It's just that just doesn't make sense. Well, she talked me into trying it, and it ended up doing pretty good. That first year, I lost another 60 pounds, getting down to 1 meal a day. And, I started I think we started at a 4-hour window, ended up closing that down to just, 1 meal a day. And that worked for a while. Probably the first 5-6 months, I lost weight. And then the last six months or so, it just kind of stalled. And so frustration built up again. And then in March of last year, we found you, and I started listening to you. And one of the things, I'll tell you this, not to give you the big head or anything here, Dr. Baker, but one of the things that I heard from you that resonated with me, and this is one of your earlier videos, I guess, but you said, it doesn't matter if you follow a meat-based diet 100% all the time and you become religious at it. But you said you have got to do something to get off all the crap that's in the grocery stores and just start eating good quality food. And to me, that told me that you were more interested in the people that were listening to you and their health than you were just promoting your own ideas. And so I said, okay, that means a lot to me. That makes sense. So we started watching a little bit more of you and started branching out and listening to some of the other people. And so in March of last year, I really concentrated on the meat-based diet. I'm not 100%. I mean, some people might get mad, so don't get too mad. But I actually have a little bit of dairy, cheese on occasion. And once in a while, Dr. Baker, I'll have a piece of homemade cornbread that my daughter makes. So it's not 100%. Say I'm probably 98% carnivore, maybe more than that. But that's definitely the basis of my diet. And now, a year later, I'm down an additional, I think, 99 pounds this year. So I'm hovering right at that 100-pound mark, and I'll probably hit it. I know I'll hit it by the end of March. So in my first year, I will have lost over 100 pounds doing 1 meal a day with the carnivore diet. And it's just been fantastic. And in my video, I mentioned that it's the little things and the big things that make the difference. Being able to walk upstairs without stopping halfway and huffing and puffing, and being able to walk in. This is a good one. I walk into a restaurant and I don't have to find a table that has chairs because I can't fit in the booth anymore. That's a small thing to most people, but to me that was huge. I went to Texas Roadhouse once when I was at near my heaviest weight and actually broke the bench that I was sitting on. You talk about embarrassing. I mean, that was embarrassing. My wife was embarrassed. We just left. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can actually fit into booths, which is good, with space. And a large majority of that is because of the carnivore diet, and really focusing on good food and eating great quality food, and reaping the benefits from that. So thank you very much for your information that you've given to us.
Yeah, I mean, I try to, kind of maintain the message. This isn't dogma ideology. It's not reverse veganism. Let's do what works for you.
Right.
And I think animal-based foods are the basis of human nutrition. I think that's just a fair statement. Let me ask you, going back, because you gained all this weight over a relatively short period of time. I mean, what was going on? What happened? Why did you gain all that weight? What do you think was happening? I mean, you weren't eating a carnivore diet, or you weren't eating a vegan diet back then.
Yeah.
Diet has to play a role. It clearly does play a role. What was your diet like when you're gaining all that weight, when you maintain all that 500 pounds of mass? And what was going in your mind to allow you to continue to do that?
So the initial 200 pounds that I went from 230 to 430 roughly. My diet was, for most people, very good. I'd have oatmeal in the morning, and the rest of my meals was either white or brown rice. Half of my plate was vegetables, broccoli, asparagus, salad. And it was lean chicken breast, boneless, skinless chicken breast, and tuna. So if you look at it, I would present my diet that I was on, my nutrition plan. That's what I've always called it, my nutrition plan, to the doctors, and they would look at me and they would say, "You're not eating this. You've got to be sneaking cases of ho-hos when nobody's looking." And that never happened. It just wasn't happening. I was on a relatively clean, what most people would say was a clean diet. And so I went for years eating the same thing, knowing that I was eating good, and I was still training during this time, still doing, powerlifting, still lifting heavy, and relatively in decent health, if we could say that. And it wasn't until, I guess, late in my 20s that I finally found a doctor who would listen to me, that something was wrong. And so by this time in my late 20s, I had done my own research. And so I went in and I said, "Look, here's what I think the problem is. I think that my testosterone levels have bottomed out. And I think there's probably an issue with my growth hormone levels." So he agreed to do the tests, and found out that's exactly what it was. In my mid to late 20s, I had a testosterone level. I think my level was 87, and it's supposed to be like 600. So I had the testosterone level of a 90-year-old man, and my growth hormone levels were pretty much non-existent. So essentially, with those two hormones being gone, the explanation that I received is that it wasn't allowing my body to actually shuttle the fat from stores into the bloodstream to be used. That's what I was told. So that's what happened.
Let me just go back to your diet. Oatmeal and rice and salads and lean chicken breast. I could conceivably see where you could gain weight that, but you'd have to eat a lot of it. you know, and so how many, I mean, do you know how many calories you were consuming if you're eating those types of food? Was it just a satiety issue, or you just, you know, even though it's quote unquote health food, or we think it is, it may not allow you to sort of stop eating, you know, I don't know. What was the amounts like? I mean, I can't imagine you put on 200 pounds in a couple of years eating, you know, 6 ounces of chicken and, you know, a cup of oatmeal. I mean, it had to have been quite a decent quantity of is that correct?
Well, let me shock you then, because it was 22 to 2,600 calories a day, because I had it all portioned and planned out, because you know, I'm frustrated as to why I'm still gaining weight. So during that time, obviously there was something else going on inside the body that wasn't right. And you know, I didn't find out about the testosterone and the growth hormone until, you know, much later. But there was something going on, and no doctor would ever stop to consider anything else besides either, you know, weight loss surgery or just putting me on an ultra low calorie diet. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of shocking, but that's the reality, that I was eating between 22 and 2,600 calories a day.
Let me just shift gears and ask you, you know, back to, because, you know, I certainly want to celebrate your success and stuff like that. But what was you know, life like as a 500 and plus pound man? I mean, how is it to mentally, physically, what kind of things did you struggle with? I mean, most of us are never going to experience it. There's very few people on the planet that have lived in that sort of physique. You know, I mean, although it's more common than it used to be, it's still an extreme rarity. What was life like for you at that weight and that size?
Well, I was fortunate, Dr. Baker, to have a background and a history in powerlifting. I was very strong. Legs were strong. You know, back was strong. I had good musculature underneath all of that. So I was still able to be very mobile. You know, I coached football. I'd get out there and run with the guys, very short distance, but I was still mobile enough to do that. You know, I could still do 1 or 2 push-ups, even at over 500 pounds, mostly because my belly took up so much weight. I only had to move this far, you know, before I hit the ground and came back up. But I was still able to do that. The biggest challenge was knowing how people in general viewed someone who was my size. And you know, in my video, I talked about being a pastor and trying to lead people into spiritual maturity and spiritual growth. All at the same time, I knew people are looking, saying, you know what, you know, listening to you for spiritual things might be good, but look at yourself, and you can't even control your own self. And you know, in the Bible, when it talks about being a pastor, being a leader, one of the things that it says is that the pastor must be able to control his household well. And that always bothered me, because it was like I couldn't control my physical house, you know, my temple. And so that always weighed heavy on my mind, no pun intended, you know, because it was like, okay, well, if I can't present physical well-being, how is it that anyone will listen to me in spiritual well-being? And so to me, that was the biggest struggle, was how other people viewed someone my size. I know that people think immediately, oh, you're lazy, you know, you're a bonbon eating slob. That was never the case for me. You know, I was always fairly active. I worked a pretty demanding job, and you know, I was always out doing things, always moving. So it was just the perception of people that I knew came along with somebody my size, and dealing with that, because I can't change your perception until I change my body. So that was the main struggle for me.
Let me ask you, because, and this is, and this, I think this is a topic that bears discussing. There is a sort of a body positivity, healthy at every size, sort of movement out there. And again, I don't think anyone that's obese or in any way should be ostracized. Just like we don't ostracize diabetics, we don't ostracize people with
Right.
dementia or anything else. But do you find that, what is your thought on the messaging that, we have people saying obesity is healthy and fine and there's nothing wrong with that? Does that concern you? And I mean, because I imagine, there was a thought that made you want to lose that weight. You didn't just persist at 500 and say, I'm good, enjoy it. I'm happy. So what are your thoughts on that? Is that something it's a message that maybe has some problems with it, or what are your thoughts on that sort of messaging?
Well, I appreciate the message that you put out. I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, and one of the magazines had put one of the big ladies out there and said, this is healthy. And you said, what in the world are people thinking? I mean, that's just stupidity. And you're absolutely right. That is stupidity. There's nothing healthy about that. There's nothing wrong with having a good image of yourself. We are indeed created in the image of God. And so to have that positive self-image based on our creation is not a bad thing. But we also have to be realist and say that, God, when he created these bodies of ours, he created them to operate in a certain way. And if we are celebrating a detriment to the operation of that creation, that not only doesn't make sense, but that's just lunacy. We don't celebrate, when somebody gets their arm blown off in war and say, yay, now you only have one arm. Aren't you wonderful? We don't do that. We offer them support and say, how can we help you make sense of what's going on? And I think that a lot of times in the culture we live in, sadly, today, there is a celebration of doing whatever you want to do without the responsibility to do what is right. And doing what is right not only is a moral issue or an ethical issue, but it comes down to a physical issue as well. And we need to take care of our bodies and the temples that God has given us for that very reason, to glorify what he has done in us, in order so that we can, be emissaries to the world of health and, his plan for humanity, which is, as he says in his word, to prosper us, to bring goodness to us, even as our soul prospers. So I'm concerned that we celebrate that type of thing. People don't have to have a six-pack, and be bodybuilding type quality. That has problems in and of itself. But we do need to be healthy, and we should get rid of all the junk and the crap that we're eating and putting into our bodies, and maintain a good nutrient dense food coming into our systems. What you are a proponent of and many other people are proponents of. And I'll throw this out there, and stay away from the whole vegetarian and vegan thing. So I definitely agree with you on that. My wife did that for about 6 weeks. Doctor, it was terrible. Man, she ended up with bags under her eyes and the black rings around her eyes. Sex drive went, it was terrible. I'm glad it only lasted for about 6 weeks, and then she started eating steak again, which helped tremendously.
Are you still actually as a pastor? I mean, has that impacted your, this transformation in body weight? Has it changed you? how that's gone? Has it changed how the I guess the parishioners, or whoever I guess the flock, how they've perceived you, and has there been any feedback since you've lost all this weight?
That's a great question. The church I was pastoring last year, COVID wreaked havoc within us. It was a small church. I pastored there literally with no pay for 10 years. So I was a volunteer pastor, full-time volunteer there. And the congregation was so small, and the number of people that when COVID hit, we took about an 85% hit in our giving, and the church ended up voting to close down. But since then, in January, I started at another church, and so they hired me in. I can tell you without a doubt that the new look, being 222 pounds lighter, even though, I'm still 321 pounds right now, which is pretty good size. And most people can't wrap their minds around weighing that much. But I'm really healthy right now. I mean, I'm down to a 42 in pants and a 3X shirt. So, which is still big, but for me, it's amazing. But I can tell you that I probably 99% would not have gotten the position where I am right now if I still would have been, 500 plus pounds. Because again, the perception of people. Who wants to hire that? Nobody wants to hire that, because of the stigma that comes with it. And it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter how much you care for people. If the perception of people is that you're a lazy bum and you can't help me because you can't help yourself, that's a problem. And so the position that I am in now, I can 99% guarantee I would not have it if I would still be at the weight where I was.
Well, I mean, arguably, you might not even be alive. I mean, there's that as well. I mean, that's
True.
certainly something that we see people that have that weight certainly die a lot younger than otherwise. So you're 320-ish right now. What do you have a continued goal? What's your plan? How much? And by the way, you said you eating this 2,200, 2,600 calories a day. What are you eating now? And in terms of calories from meat, or if you track that, what is that like? How's it been different for you? And where are you headed with weight? Are you happy where you're at, or what's the goal?
So my goal, where I will reevaluate, not my diet plan. I'll be a carnivore for the rest of my life. But where I will reevaluate where I want to go, that number is 275. And when I hit that number, I also know that right now I probably have 35 to 45 pounds of skin that can be removed. So calculating all of that, if it's 40 pounds, that puts me at 235 once I have all that removed, if I choose to do so. So 275 is the goal. As far as calorie wise, I have mostly every day, this is my normal diet, a 1 pound New York strip and a 12-ounce slab of salmon. So the strip is about 1,000 calories, depends on how much I trim off the fat. So 900 to 1,000 calories. The fish is 720 calories. If I add anything on top of that, I might have pork rinds, 160 calories a bag. I'll mix up tartar sauce with some, mayonnaise and relish. Again, I know it's not carnivore, but it makes it sustainable for me, which is the key. So I'll have that and some ketchup, maybe some sugar-free barbecue sauce, that type of thing. So I'm sitting anywhere from about 1,900 calories to 21, 22. So I've been staying average right at 2,000 calories, and I've been full, feel good. I do have coffee throughout the day, so I have cream and stuff in there, and I try to allow myself some calories there as well. So but that's where I'm staying mostly.
Yeah, somebody's asking, and you mentioned this earlier, you saw that you had expressed fairly low levels of I guess, total testosterone.
Mhm.
And was that addressed? Did you go on hormone replacement therapy? Is it still part of something you're doing? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So in my late 20s, I'm 45 now. Late 20s, I started on a topical testosterone testim and androgel. And at one point, I was up to taking 6 pumps of that a day, which is 3 times the normal amount for most people. Even with that, I didn't lose any weight at all. So there was a time when I paid to have human growth hormone. And when I was taking injectable testosterone, 200 milligrams a week, and an injectable, of course, human growth hormone at I think it was 2.1 IUs a day, that really helped, and I was able to lose weight then. However, the human growth hormone was like $90 a day. So, but my insurance, they wouldn't pay for it. And they still won't pay for it. Right now, I see a doctor here locally, and every 6 months or so, he gives me a pellet injection. So I take, I think right now I'm taking 17 or 18 pellets, which is enormous, but that's in order to get my testosterone levels up to where I can actually tell a difference. So the carnivore diet works really well, and it has worked really well. It's always better when I have the testosterone levels higher. So, for me and my body, I had to get that hormone level correct as well. But when I added, the intermittent fasting and the carnivore diet into it, things took off enormously. So that's where I am with that.
I mean, at 500 pounds, did you have, I can't imagine you didn't have issues with insulin or glucose. Were you pre-diabetic, diabetic, any of those things? Were any of those things going on that you know of or checked, or did you check insulin levels or any of those types of things?
Yeah. So whenever I would go to the doctor during my late 20s and throughout my 30s, blood sugar level was always good. I didn't start to have a rise in blood sugar level, I think, until I hit, I think I was 40, maybe 41. So maybe about 4 years ago. And I was still, I was still very, very heavy. So it took a long time, I guess, for my body to really have any type of reaction to that. I would say it's because I never ate a whole lot of sugar, except for Christmas time, and you'd have your cookies and your cakes then. But I never ate a lot of refined sugar, even during that time. But the amount that I had to be doing something with insulin, but it never really showed up.
How does, you mentioned your wife, how does she deal with, or is she accepting of this carnivore diet? I mean, some people have pushback from families where they think it's kind of crazy and nutty. What's been the reception within your own family?
Well, she got me started on it, so she does it. She does it as well. She's lost, I think, 75 pounds since being on carnivore, and so yeah, she accepts it very well. We are always a little bit leery when people ask us what we're doing, because carnivore diet isn't, real well known with people. And then when you tell them we don't eat any vegetables, it's, oh my goodness, how can you not eat any vegetables? Do you go to the bathroom? It's like, oh, yes, of course we go to the bathroom. We're not like superhumans that don't need to. So when we talk about it to other people, I know my wife tends to use the term Atkins or zero carb. A lot of people understand that, and then that's met with, I guess, less resistance. I always say I only eat meat. I'm a carnivore. And they say, what is that? And I tell them I enjoy a 1 pound steak and a big slab of salmon every single day. And it's the best thing that you can eat. I grill it, throw it in the, the cast iron skillet, some sugar-free barbecue sauce at 135 degrees. And it's the best thing you ever eat. And I get to eat it every single day. And so I work it up quite a bit. And, but my wife is very accepting of it. My daughter, she accepts it because she's seen the results, but she loves to cook. And so she doesn't do it with us. I mean, she still loves to cook. And so she makes her own food and we make our own food. But yeah, other than that, the people I've told has been very, very responsive to it. They're just shocked that we don't eat anything else except for meat.
Yeah, I've heard that before, believe me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think the fact that we're willing to say and be proud of the fact we eat meat and it's part of the human diet, and, maybe we're eating it exclusively. I think that's actually ultimately going to be a better thing than just kind of hiding and saying you're eating an Atkins diet or a low carb diet or a zero carb diet, because, I think you ultimately, I think the message needs to be out there that meat is a health food, and it's
Sure.
really upon all of us that are experiencing this to let the rest of the world know that, because otherwise it will be removed from the human diet. That is there are people that would like to do that. Now, whether they're successful or not depends upon what we're willing to do to prevent that. And so, you mentioned, so lifting, are you doing, I mean, you mentioned you went for a 5-mile walk and just about died and had to call your wife. What's activity like these days? Are you lifting? Are you working out? Are you still doing the walking? What's going on with that?
Yeah. So what I have found over the last couple of years is that when I train the way that I like to train, which is heavyweight, low reps, my body does not lose anything. I don't lose any weight that way. And I don't know if that's the added stress level and the cortisol that's formed, from that heavy lifting. So the last couple of months or so, what I have found is that just a 3-day a week. So I go in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I start with a 10-minute walk that I will walk for 1 minute, 2 minutes to warm up. And then at the top of every minute, so on every minute, I increase the incline, increase the speed for 20, 25 seconds, and then come down and rest for the rest of that minute. And then I keep doing that until I hit the 10-minute mark, which part of that came from you, Dr. Baker, and watching some of your training, doing the every minute on the minute thing. And that works out pretty good. I get my heart rate up to about 135, 140 doing that. And then as far as training goes, now what I'm down to is just two alternate sessions, 3 sets of 15 on squats, 3 sets of 15 on some form of, bench press, usually dumbbells, and 3 sets of 15 on rows. And that'll be all that I do. And I go in on the alternate days and do shoulders and arms. And I also do calves and stomach. So it's a lot different than what I love to do. But, you have to have your priorities. And right now my priority is that 275 number. So trying to do everything that I can. And then when I hit that number, I'll probably reevaluate and get back into the heavy lifting and go from there.
I assume you still have a physician you see. Have they sort of commented on your weight loss? And what was in, the bariatric surgery aspect? Because, I mean, a lot of people certainly do that. What was there a point when you considered that, and if so, what made you not decide to do that?
So as far as the bariatrics go, a word that I mentioned earlier is sustainable. It has to be sustainable. No matter what you do, it has to be sustainable or you're going to quit. You may quit because you don't like it or because it's not working, but whatever you're doing has to be sustainable. And as I look at bariatrics is not sustainable. You have people reverting to their same fat self, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the road after surgery. They have all kinds of problems. There are more problem cases than success cases in bariatrics. And so anytime that somebody would mention that to me, again, it's not logical to me to go have a surgery that has a 5% success rate where you're cutting out my intestines or rearranging how things are supposed to work. No, let's just fix the problem as opposed to trying to just cut it out and having a 5% success rate. That's stupid. That's just dumb. So I never really considered that at all. It just didn't make sense to me. And what was your first question? What did you ask me?
I just wanted to see what the response of your current physician has been to your change, and does he give you a hard time about your diet?
Actually, no. Neither. I have two physicians that I see. One's just primary care, and one is just for my testosterone. So the primary care physician, he's pretty cool. He's a younger guy. Yeah, he's about 15 years younger than me, which is kind of funny. You're going in and seeing an older doctor, and now I'm seeing a little young pup, as I call him. But yeah, he's good. He was a little concerned with the possible numbers, cholesterol and things like that, but all of those have evened out, and so he's fine. And my testosterone doctor, my hormone therapist, he just loves the results. In fact, he's wanting me to actually tell him exactly what I'm doing now, because he's part of a weight loss clinic, and he wants to use some of these ideas and concepts with his patients as well. So we're working on that together as well.
It's good to see the more supportive doctors. Mark, thank you for doing this. First of all, I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And good luck on your continued success. I'm sure you'll be an source of inspiration for many, many people. Let me ask you, because not unfortunately, I've got a bunch of MMA professional fighters coming to the house to train here in a few minutes. And so I've got to go get ready for those guys, and we're going to go work out together. But let me ask you, where can people go to find you? Do you have a website? Do you have social media? If they want to hear more or follow your journey.
So I do not have a website. The social media, I've really just started in the last couple of weeks. So I do have a YouTube channel, which has a 6-minute video of my journey on there. And it's Meat Mac, MEATMAC, Meat Mac. And Mark Cox, PhD is the Instagram. And I have a Twitter account, but I don't know what that is. I really just got it to follow President Trump, and so I haven't even been on there since November.
Well, good luck following Trump on Twitter.
yeah, it's not going to happen
anymore, I don't think. But anyway, well, I if you're willing to share your story and get in public, you can inspire people. So thank you for doing that. Anyway, don't be a stranger to this community. Certainly we have a lot of people that would love to continue to interact with you, I'm sure. And, good luck to you. And thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baker. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, guys, I got to run. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I think we have another guest tomorrow. Yeah, we have another guest tomorrow. So you guys take care, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.